Welcome to the All Ambient podcast, where we dig into the creative process, hear untold stories, and explore the brilliant minds behind some of the finest ambient music out there. I'm your host, Mike Graff. I'm excited to be in this together with you. Let's get going. Again, welcome to the All Ambient podcast, everyone. My name is Mike Graff. I make music as Dear Gravity, and we are joined for a one-on-one conversation again with our friend Kirk Smith of We Dream of Eden. Kirk is no stranger to the podcast, of course. He is one of the wise voices behind the Roundtable and Music News episodes. But even further than that, I just consider Kirk to be a friend and an inspiration in the space of not only music, but life. And we had a great chance to dig into the question, where do you see this going in the next handful of years, in the future, in the remainder of time that we have here on this planet? And we explored that from a bunch of different angles. I really appreciate Kirk's perspective, and I think it's going to be encouraging to everyone listening. Let's not wait any longer. Let's get right into my conversation with Kirk Smith. Kirk, thank you so much for coming on back to the interview seat at the All Ambient podcast. Really glad to be sitting down together with you, man.
Mike, always a pleasure. Happy to be here.
It really is. And at time of recording, we wound up just doing a roundtable and a music news last night. I am overjoyed with the amount of time you and I are getting to spend together over these couple days. It's pretty great.
Love it.
Yeah. Not to mention the thing that we, collabing recently and all that. It's been really great. We've been
like making music and hanging out. And we still, we don't have to leave the house.
We're not sick of each other yet.
Right.
I'm sure I'll do something to tip that scale, but it's all good. Well, man, Kirk, really glad we get to just relax and have a conversation. I wanted to pick your brain about something. And I know I gave you a little bit of a heads up on this, but I think I've been asking the question. I would love to specifically ask you because I love the journey that you've been on with We Dream of Eden and all the different things that are attached to that, whether it's side monikers or, releasing courses and then you just all the whole educational side of all of this alongside, all the different things that you've been doing as We Dream of Eden. We've been making music. It's almost identical when we both got started. Yes. Mm-hmm. Like it was kind of like the late 2010s that we were releasing music. I forget exact what date.
Yeah. I think it was like 2017, 2018.
Yep.
Around that time.
Yeah. I think we're literally tracking right kind of at the same time. One could probably spot check that if they were to look at timestamps on
releases.
Fun fact. I actually released my first Dear Gravity record under a different moniker name and then yanked it and re-released it as Dear Gravity because I wasn't happy with the name of the first one. And 4 people listened to it.
Just, that's you're like, nope, not gonna do it, and you pulled it out.
I guess so. I don't know if it was smart or if it was not smart, but I
like Dear Gravity.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks. It's better than what the other name was. So we've been doing this thing together for a while, and literally together for a handful of years. You and I know we talked about this the first time that we had our interview, but I believe the first official collaborative release that both you and I put out were together. We did it together, and that was, I think that was 2019, if I'm not mistaken. You may need to correct me on that. It might have been, I don't think it was 2020.
Right. It's Riven, right?
I think I'm fairly positive that was 2019, just right before the world shut down. So super fun. But yeah, so I mean, that's, we've been kind of on this journey, certainly together, but also just running parallel and being able to encourage each other and all that. But my question, Kirk, and obviously anyone listening has already seen the title of this, but I just want to ask you, where do you see this going? Where do you see this going? You are clearly gifted at what you do. You are clearly passionate about continuing to grow and, to be encouraged by the momentum that's happened, by the success that's happened, and to continue to take steps in the positive direction. Those are all great things, but I'm always curious what kind of the future brainstorming looks like. And for someone like yourself who has been doing this for a handful of years and has watched that success, like, hey, here's a new level that has been arrived at. Here's a new level that's been arrived at. Here's a new level that's been arrived at. What does the future look like for you? And I know it's kind of a vague question because one truly does not know what tomorrow brings, but
Sure.
I'm just curious if let's just explore that a little bit. If you are the kind of guy who has an aim for what's coming up ahead, or if your absolute directive is, I want to respond to what's happening right now and want to just take one step at a time and allow myself to be all in right here. I think there's a lot of beautiful pieces to both strategies and can probably pull from both and create a third or a fourth or whatever.
Yeah.
But tell me, just walk me a little bit through, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. Maybe this is something that all of us need to spend a little bit more time kind of thinking through. But yeah, tell me about where your head and your heart are at in what's coming up in the next 1, 3, 5 plus years and what all that stuff.
Yeah, those are wonderful questions that I think about a lot, and probably at times more than I should.
Sure. Yeah.
And sometimes maybe less than I should. I was thinking I'm going to butcher it, but there's a scripture that says something like, man makes his plans, but the Lord orders his steps, something like that. In the heart of a man, he makes his plans, but the Lord orders his steps, or something like that. Yeah. Or the rider readies the horse, those kind of things. But basically where it's like, and that's what I feel like. It's the
way of the Lord that prevails. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, it's just and John Lennon said, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. And so there's a sense where I think we should have things that we aim for, and that we have dreams and we have goals. I have all those things. But what I've noticed is that a lot of times I will have a dream or a goal or something, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to move towards it. And then sometimes an opportunity will arise and I'll have to say, okay, well, this is what I thought, the direction I was going. This thing came up, and then should I pursue this, or should I, not do it? And so that happens a lot. And I would say even just the We Dream of Eden thing was a thing where it definitely, at first it wasn't part of a plan, but then it became a plan. And then as I was working different versions of my version to do the thing, other things popped up that I wasn't expecting. And so I think what I hope to have happen is that there's momentum in creativity in my life that is fulfilling. And so I feel like the goals and the dreams and the things that we do can help create momentum to where we're moving in a direction that we feel like is the right direction. Now that things that we can't necessarily control sometimes are the outcomes, or what is the thing that actually pops off, or the thing that takes off. Because we could probably have several dozen podcasts of all the different things that I've tried that have, that I thought were going to be the thing to make the thing happen, and it didn't work out, Hey,
but you're not alone in that either.
You're right. So it's so when I think about what is the future, I have hopes. And I think specifically, if I narrow it into what's my hopes for We Dream of Eden, I think to be more intentional with the projects that I do, and to not overstretch myself with just a bunch of stuff, and to try to kind of be like, okay, let's do projects that I'm excited about, or that I feel like I have margin for in my life. And that's, I feel like I'm in a place where I can do that. So that's very exciting. And so it's like taking on projects that I feel like I have margin for, that I'm excited about, that I can contribute to in a way that's meaningful, and to have that kind of rhythm of releases that feels like I'm still curious and creative and finishing things, like even this project that we did together as a 4-way roundtable, hot potato musical telephone, if you will, we just pass it around. That was awesome, and that idea was like, oh, well, this is a cool idea. So that sounds fun, and it's going to challenge me in a way that I hadn't done before. And so things like that. So trying to take on projects that are challenging, but also enjoyable. That's what I hope the future brings. And then I would say the other thing that I'm hoping is, even today, I got a message from someone who is just saying, you don't know me, but thank you so much for your music. I use it in my morning meditation and prayer and all this kind of stuff. And they were just encouraging. And I was just like, that's amazing. Like, it's incredible to think that, that you can create. I was thinking of it, of like, I always joke and say it's like scented candles for your ears. Or
that's really, I don't know why I haven't heard that one yet, but that's really good.
That's kind of how that's how I think about it. And audio incense.
Yeah. Yep.
And, and so it's amazing to think that you can create this thing that creates a sensory connection for people in a way that brings them into something bigger than all of us. And like, you're like, whoa, that's amazing. And I think for the future, I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting that. I want to do what I'm excited about and, scratch your own itch and all that kind of stuff. But I think to also look at it as you are serving people with this thing that resonates with yourself. And to maybe explore more ways of doing that. Like, I have this project that I'm working on that I'm hopefully going to wrap up in the early next year. That's based off of a book called Into the Silent Land. That's just exploring. It's just this collection of writings about meditation, and I've enjoyed it just from reading it. And so I'm making this project to kind of be like a journal processing version of things that stuck out to me in the book. Yeah. And it's like, well, maybe I could do something with that that's bigger than just the project or whatever. So it's like, when I think about those things, sometimes I just get overwhelmed, but it's like, okay, how do I maybe do something a little bit more intentional with, clearly the music is helping people in this area. And so is there something else I can add to come alongside that would help even more? And maybe yes, and maybe no, I don't know. Yeah. But projects like that could be cool. Yeah. So I think those are kind of the two big things that I think would be sustainable, to where I do enough projects a year to feel like I'm kind of keeping myself creative and curious in that genre, and maybe doing things that are even more intentional with that whole kind of meditation world, because I'm into the meditation myself, Yeah. And so I think that's for that specifically.
Yeah. No, man, I love that, Kirk. And I think one of the main reasons I love that, and it kind of dawned on me while you were answering, not that I was just sitting here waiting to say something until you were done, because that is not the truth at all. But it dawned on me that what you are not saying is that there are certain metrics that you're going to try to hit in the next handful of years. Like, I want this many, listeners, or this many streams on this many platforms, and this and that. And those, not that those are even bad things to aim for per se, or to have, just kind of being aware of trajectory and direction. Those are not, evil things to be aware of, but I don't hear you saying something like, man, my goal is just within 5 years, I need to increase my listenership by this much, because that's the thing. I hear you saying, I want to be true to my calling. I want to continue to create in a way that is fulfilling to me, and also serving and benefiting others that are there to take it in. And I love that. It feels like the right kind of goalpost to go for, not only because it offers opportunity to explore that in a myriad of ways, but also, one of them, in a lot of senses, you have complete control over, like the opportunity to keep saying yes to that calling in you, and making room for that, and sacrificing perhaps other things, other time and effort and finance or whatever, to say yes to this and to move forward in this. That is something that you do have the ability to measure whether or not you're going to be there, as opposed to, like, if you have a metric, a number of streams or a number of release or a number of whatever, you have a little bit of control over that, just to, kind of contribute to the system. But then literally, who knows what's going to happen to anything at any given moment. And so I hear a positive, realistic is a bad word for it, but I hear a positive, a true sense of what one would define inner success is.
Well, it's like it's the why. It's kind of a bigger why that's going to be more sustainable over time, of why would I keep doing this? Yeah. And I would say too, though, is that a lot of that stuff does shake down to actual metrics, in the sense of, it's like, well, I know it takes me 4 to 8 hours to make something that it takes me a day or maybe 2 full days to make something that I love. And so if I want to make 4 projects a year and they each have this, then I need to make sure I have, this many days of the year that I'm going to dedicate to this. Otherwise it's not going to happen. And, or I want this to connect with people. And so part of that means I have to connect with people. And I mean, early on, I was pretty regimented about reaching out to X amount of people a day to build relationships and to make connections.
Sure.
And that kind of thing is still something that's on my radar, but it's like, I have to make that part of the thing too, So there are kind of, I guess, metric-based repetitive actions that serve the why, but the why is still like, I enjoy making this. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing that at least X times a year. And I want to make sure that I'm connecting with at least this many people on a creative basis a year,
Yeah.
And so that's really what I come back to all the time, is to build your catalog and to build your relationships, make music and make friends. If you can do those 2 things, I think a lot of either the financial or the metrics of that kind of stuff, it starts to build.
Indeed. Yeah.
Over time. And if anything, at the end of the day, you have music and friends, at the end of it.
Yeah.
So, which is always a bonus.
100%, man. I was going to ask, so that's so well spoken, and I love that. Clarify for me just a little bit, when you talk about what you are running after and continuing to build that relational equity, not for the sake of advancing one's career, but for the sake of just genuinely like pouring into people and like being a good human being, and then just watching what happens after that. And you look at the creativity, you look at the ministering to, to those who are listening. Is that something like, do you feel, and this, I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer, but is We Dream of Eden the center of all that for you? Because I know that you do explore a handful of other projects. I know that there's different touch points you have on different monikers and different lanes that you're doing. But, and again, who knows what tomorrow's going to bring, but is We Dream of Eden the center of that for you? Would that be the last pin that falls when all is said and done?
I really don't know. I mean, what I would say is that We Dream of Eden has become the thing that is helping me do what I want to do, which is make music. God breathed on it and it is growing, and I'm very grateful. And so there's part of me that's like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm still stewarding this and I'm still taking care of this and being intentional with it. But it's almost like, from a practical standpoint, I have enough music to where there's like stuff in the can that is going to be coming out for the next, almost year. And so then I'm like, I have time, in a manner of speaking, that I'm like, okay, well, I know this is important, but there's other things that I love to do. And so I would say, like, outside of We Dream of Eden, I'm actually, I guess it'd be the first time publicly out loud, is that I'm hoping to do something in the next year or so, some actual songs with actual words and actual singing in a different, it probably wouldn't be under We Dream of Eden, mostly just because algorithms and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, I've thought about having like We Dream of Eden, like be on, help make a track or something. I don't know how that would work. But so I'm kind of in a place where I've really been focusing on trying to get better with my guitar stuff and with vocal stuff. And I'm spending a lot of time in that kind of world. And then I'm hoping to, in the later part of this year, just dig back into either songs that I've written or just writing new songs again and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a little bit scary, I would, to be honest, because you kind of have this thing that's working and you're like, well, could I do it again? And I was like, well, I don't know. Was it an accident? Or so that's kind of in the future. I'm super grateful that this is helping me do other things. And the lo-fi stuff is another thing that I've been growing, and it's going well. And I'll meet people on the internets, and we're trying to collab and do things and working with different labels and doing stuff independently. And that's been fun. Yeah. And it kind of helps me when I'm tired of doing beatless music, because I want some drums going on. Yeah. It's a nice change.
It's great.
So I think that's kind of what I'd love the future to be, is just having maybe these 3 monikers, an ambient thing, a lo-fi thing, and then a singer-songwriter or artist song thing.
Yeah.
And just have those 3 things at this point, and just cultivate a rhythm where I'm releasing things annually that I'm excited about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see.
we will see. Well, I know if nothing else, I know that you're going to put your heart and soul into it, and that it's going to be beautiful art. And yeah, then, just with the God breathing on it, just whatever that winds up looking like traction wise and all that, I wouldn't want to confuse traction with this is the exact project I was supposed to say yes to. And if you don't get traction on something, then that means that you weren't supposed to say yes to it. There's learning all over the place.
Right.
For sure. But all that to say, I know that at the very least you will be putting your heart and soul into what you're putting out, and then let's see what happens with that.
Yeah. And so you can't, it's like there's so much that you can't control.
Yeah.
Then it's like, well, does that mean you don't do it because you don't know if it will succeed?
Right.
Quotes, air quotes, succeed. Because then you have to, because that's what you have to do is you have to define what success is.
Yeah.
And
I think you've done a good job of that already. I think, again, that success being that target that you are aiming for, it's not a success that you have to question as to if you're capable of getting there. It is 100% the opportunity up to you on whether that success is achieved or not by sewing into that.
Yes. And I'll say even more vulnerable, honest about success and or not success. I've been practicing guitar almost 2 hours a day for the past 6-7 months, going through this kind of intensive program online.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it is really hard. It's I'm spending a large part of my day feeling like I'm terrible at music. You know what I mean? It's trying to do this skill. And it's basically failing for 2 hours. You grow and you see progress, but it's you're at the edge of your ability. And so what is success? What I want is I want to be great at the guitar and be fluent and my imagination and my fingers are one and I'm expressing. And it's that's success in my mind. But if that's success in my mind, then I'm just going to be angry at the end of every session. And I'm going to feel like I'm a failure all the time. And those are real struggles that I have while I'm doing this. And I remember hearing somebody talk about when having an ability is your goal, you're going to be frustrated pretty much all the time.
Wow.
But when growing an ability is your goal, you're going to feel like a success because you're well, no, I right now I am growing an ability. I'm growing in this area, growing in this skill. And I just did it. I did what I wanted to. What I wanted to do was to grow in this area. And so I did it. And you're okay, that feels like a win. But if your goal is, I want to be a great guitar player, and I sit down, with the cage system for 2 hours and feel like my fingers are made out of concrete, then it's no, you have not succeeded today. Yeah. And so
that's, I was just going to say, I think that's such great perspective. Yeah. The difference between you're achieving what you're achieving, but then, you have the ability to tell yourself that you're succeeding at growing or that you're failing at being a fully realized thing. And for sure, I love that you're choosing the healthy approach. Every day that you are choosing to go that way.
That's the struggle. Yeah. And I think what Denzel Washington said, failing forward, you fail forward, and I think that's the momentum. And that's where it's okay, what I want for the future is I want momentum musically in my life, but also I want to be healthy.
Yeah.
I want to be healthy with how I approach music and not feeling inadequate, but feeling curious and creatively satisfied. That's kind of, that's the hopeful journey of it all.
Yeah. I love that, man. One more question for you as we wrap this up. I am curious. So we talk a little bit about, just continuing to be, to create and to sow into that creativity and to foster that curiosity, and then just kind of allow for the potential to be pleasantly surprised along the way, or you see what happens with this, you see what happens with that. Do you have any stories of little ways that you've been surprised along the journey so far? Any moments in the last handful of months or years where that was a unique little surprise? And for a surprise like that to be something that then, almost like just nudges a momentum, hey, you know what? I think it's worth putting a little bit more energy into that particular lane because of that cool little surprise, or whatever results from kind of a unique little thing like that.
I would say I'd have to go back and look at everything, but I can remember, I can remember writing down, I keep these little books filled with scraps of paper of notes of things that I had goals for or projects and I think I said something about I wanted to be able to have this project grow to this point and to be able to hit this, financial thing. Like, I think it's important to think about those things. They're not the why,
absolutely,
but in some ways they finance the how and long term it's like that. But I can remember just kind of writing it down and then just putting it to the side. It wasn't on like a dream board that I looked at every morning and was like, okay, now that I'm going to get in here. Like I literally was just like wrote it down once. I think it was probably a year later, I kind of was reminded of that. And I was like, and I looked, I was like, well, it actually happened.
Yeah.
I was like, it was really, it was surprising. It wasn't like I said, it wasn't like this thing where I had this mantra and I had the, the thermometer chart on the wall and was like doing that. But it was surprising that it was almost exactly what I was hoping would happen, which in my grand scheme of creative life was very surprising that what you actually have hoped to happen happens.
Achieved.
And so I think that was surprising because it's like you don't know the things that are actually possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get surprised by things that happen. So
absolutely. I love that. And I love, the target not being something that you worship, but I think that's really to be aware of what one needs to invest into to give opportunity for that sort of thing to happen. And again, it's not as though one can personally conjure up a certain number of downloads or listeners or licenses or, publishing royalty revenue, like all this stuff. It's not as though you can will that into existence, but staying faithful to the craft certainly doesn't hurt the process. And to stay faithful to it in something that not only you are gifted in, but also something that you enjoy to the degree that you do. What a win-win-win at that point, especially when, kind of going back to receiving notes from the listeners who are saying like, I love this. This is part of the heartbeat of my life and some of the most, quiet moments of my day where I'm spending time trying to get myself right. Like that's what a full circle thing for us trying to be obedient to what we've been called to is then encouraging others to be obedient to what they've been called to, whatever that might mean, whatever part of that journey. That's real success, man. And I love your rocket ship that is continuing to knock down, hitting a new level of ozone or atmosphere, just it's going. Just it's a joy to know the heart behind it all and just to say, man, well done and keep up the great work for sure.
Man, I appreciate it. That's very, very kind, very encouraging. And it's great to have people like you on the journey, man. It's great that we don't have to do this alone.
100%.
So I appreciate it.
Love it. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for listening to the All Ambient podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you can catch every conversation we have with all these incredible people who share the same passion. I'm looking forward to the next time, and I hope you are too. Can't wait to see you then, and until then, have an incredible day. Here's hoping this music and the heart behind it makes your day and life that much better. We'll see you next time.